Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. On this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about another massive attack that took place during the previous night between the 10th and 11th of October of 2025. This picture was published this morning by pro-Ukraine resources, and here we can see the roads, the approximate roads of drones that were launched from the territory of Rostov and that attacked later the territory of the city of Odessa and the region of Odessa. So lots of explosions were recorded. The Russians managed to deal significant damage to this territory, and the sources are saying that the Russians during this attack were attacking the objects of energy facilities and energy infrastructure. The sources are saying that the Usatovo substation was damaged by Russians, maybe not even damaged, but completely destroyed. So this is not just a substation, this is the power supply hub of the southwestern energy ring of the Odessa region, so which is very important. We see that the Russians are tasked to destroy the Ukrainian energy facility completely during this period of time, during this autumn and winter, and the Russians have just one purpose of this: to force Ukrainians to capitulate and to stop this war and to accept Russian demands. As for the 11th of October of 2025, I'm not sure that Zelensky is ready to accept anything from the Russian side. He promises that in coming days he will attack the territory of Russia and will create a blackout on the territory of the Russian Federation, but it seems that he's bluffing right now. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians attacked the city of Shakhove, and this is the video that came from this area. And in this video, we can see a very powerful and big explosion on the territory of the city of Shakhove, which is another very important city in Ukrainian logistics. As you can see, the railways between the city of Kharkiv and Kupiansk go exactly through the settlement of Shakhove. Ukrainians use this territory to redeploy their troops and forces from the city of Kharkiv in the direction of the city of Kupiansk, where there are very heavy clashes right now, and the Russians are about to take under complete control this territory. So most likely the Russians managed to discover another ammo depot or warehouse, and as a result of attack, this territory was completely destroyed. At least the size of explosion tell us about this. Of course, the Ukrainian politicals cannot stay aside from this situation, and today several Ukrainian politicals made very important statements that describe the situation pretty well. Winter will be taught, and there will be a blackout. Stock up, cooperate, and best of all, consider temporary moving outside the city this fall and winter. This especially applies to Kiev residents. Russia, if it so chooses, can destroy any critical infrastructure facility in Ukraine, regardless of its defenses. The only question is the number of missiles and drones that the Russians need for these purposes. So obviously, the situation is going to be difficult, and winter is going to be probably the worst winter for Ukraine since the beginning of the special military operation. The Kiev's authorities understand the situation, and they are ready for a ceasefire. Kiev is ready for a ceasefire with Russia during the 2026 Olympics, the Ukrainian foreign minister stated. As you can see, this is a very important statement. They are ready for a ceasefire, but at the same time, this statement means that Ukrainians are planning to fight with Russians until at least February of 2026. So, which means that few more months we are going to see clashes along the line of combat contact and more strikes from the Russian side. Kiev supports Italy's proposal for a global ceasefire during the Winter Olympics, which will take place from February 6 to 22 of 2026, a Ukrainian foreign minister spokesperson stated. He also clarified that they are ready to initiate the ceasefire now. Of course, Kiev doesn't have any other option. They need a ceasefire right now because any second or any other attack on Ukraine energy facility can bring a complete collapse of the entire facility and energy infrastructure of Ukraine. For example, this is the settlement by the name of Rivne. The sources are saying that there were power outages as well. The city experienced emergency power outages, but the sources are saying that the Ukrainians were trying to transfer electricity from the western part of Ukraine in the eastern direction, and that led to some collapse, to partial collapse of the energy system in this part of Ukraine. So we see that this plan didn't work. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. And currently, the most probably fierce clashes are taking place for the settlement by the name of Alexeyevka. This Russian offensive operation started several days ago. So this is the situation by the end of the 8th of October of 2025, and this is the moment when pro-Ukraine resources began publishing photos and videos that first Russian soldiers were recorded on the southern part of the settlement of Alexeyevka. So this is the first update about the situation in this region. Later, we started receiving updates on the ground. Some neutral mappers adjusted the map to the south of the settlement. Some pro-Russian resources reported about the beginning of offensive operation, and by the end of the 10th of October of 2025, we made the first adjustment based on the video that was published by pro-Ukraine resources, where we can see how Ukrainians were counter-attacking the southern part of Alexeyevka with a tank, and Ukrainians were attacking the barracks in the southern part of the settlement, which means that most likely by the time when Ukrainians were counter-attacking, the barracks were under complete Russian control. And by the morning of the 11th of October, we got additional details about the territory, about the situation in this area, and based on geolocations that were published by pro-Ukraine resources, we have adjusted the map, and currently we see that the armed forces of the Russian Federation controls around 50% of the settlement, and they continue advancing. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that Ukrainians are trying to bring additional forces in the southern direction through the river of Volcha, but everything that crosses the river of Volcha is being destroyed by Russia immediately. And this is another episode. For example, here we can see a vehicle in the vicinity of the settlement of Aristopol that was moving in the southern direction with the purpose to bring additional forces or to evacuate wounded, but the vehicle was discovered by Russians and the vehicle was destroyed by Russians immediately. So currently Ukrainians lost any possibilities to bring forces to the south. Everything that crosses the river will be destroyed immediately by Russia. So this is the situation, and most likely the Ukrainians will lose the bridgeheads to the south of the river of Volcha. This will allow the Russians to capture the settlement of Aristopol in coming days, and probably even to move further, to cross the river and to begin offensive operation on the settlement of Velika Mikhailovka as well. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. The situation in this area remains tense for Ukrainians. Today we got lots of very interesting and very important videos that I would like to discuss with you in details. According to information we have, the Russians continue offensive operation and assault operation on the Pokrovskaya mine. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing the Pokrovskaya mine with FABs. According to information we have, several days ago, the Russians managed to enter its southeastern part and to capture some buildings and positions in this area. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation inside of the city limits and the Pokrovsk agglomeration. But the most important probable video is coming from the area of intersection of Olympiyskaya Street and TO 515 road. So this is the most important video probably of the previous 24 hours. And here we can see another cemetery. This time this is not a Bradley Square, this is not something like this, but here we can see dozens of vehicles that were destroyed during a Russian special operation by the name of Kill Zone established along the main supply lines. The sources counted more than 10 vehicles that were destroyed exactly in this place, and this is the most important intersection of roads in the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration, because this is the only road that Ukrainians still have to supply and support their contingent on the territory of agglomeration. And this video confirms that currently nothing can enter the city of Pokrovsk and the Pokrovsk agglomeration. If anything enters this intersection, this will be destroyed within the next probably 5 or 10 minutes. minutes, Russians controlled the situation. And by the way, this video was made also by a Russian drone that was flying above this territory and checking whether anybody survived from Ukrainian side or whether another vehicle is moving using this road. So this means that the Russians most likely managed to cut in cauldron the city of Pokrovsk. They haven't cut physically the main supply lines, but they have cut them with FPV drones. Furthermore, the Russians continue their counter-offensive operation in the direction of the Shakhove pocket, and the situation for Ukrainians in this area is also very difficult. During the previous 24 hours, additional videos were published how Russians were bombing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. The Russians are trying to destroy the temporary deployment points of the armed forces of Ukraine and, of course, the FPV drone operator bases. Furthermore, during the previous 12 hours, we got another video where we can see how exactly Russians were attacking the settlement of Shakhove using motorcycles and vehicles. The Ukrainians are saying that Russians used dozens of vehicles and dozens of motorcycles with the purpose to break through Ukraine defense. And based on episodes that were geolocated in the video that was published by pro-Ukraine resources, we have adjusted the map. So this is the situation, for example, by the end of the 6th of October of 2025, and this is approximately the moment when Russians began their offensive operation. So this is the end of the 7th of October. The Russians secured the settlement of Pankovka, and we start receiving first updates that the settlement of Shakhove was captured by Russians. By the end of the 8th of October, we got additional changes in the southern part of the settlement. By the end of the 9th of October, we got additional clarifications about the situation on the ground. By the end of the 10th of October, the Russians improved their position significantly, and we start receiving first reports that indeed the settlement of Shakhove and Vladimirovka, where the Shakhove were about to capture, and Vladimirovka were captured. And by the beginning of the 11th of October, the Russians managed to recapture the settlement of Vladimirovka completely. And now the clashes and the battles are taking place for the final settlement in the Shakhove pocket by the name of Shakhove. As for the Siversk-Liman direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded. The Russians continue bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine along Seversky Donetsk River. In this video, we can see another camp, another temporary deployment point of the armed forces of Ukraine was destroyed. First, it was discovered as a result of intelligence operation. Furthermore, we got reports that the Russians were bombing the city of Kramatorsk. Few more temporary deployment points were damaged and destroyed. So the situation in this direction is also remains tense. And that's it for today. For this video, Military with Samurai channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.